Hello, everybody. It is Larry, the GM, and we are here to talk about the best postseason realignment. Let's see if we got a quick audio check on this to see if it is working. I am not sure. All right, I guess I'm going to record this as if my. Okay, there we go. And we are here. All right, there you go. Sorry about that, guys. At least I know the sound is working, and now we will get started. All right, so what we're going to do, I've written a couple articles on my Patreon site. It is free for anybody to join in on the site there. So feel free to do that. Please subscribe to the channel. I'm going to try to do some more content as we go through this college football season, particularly about my Longhorns, because I expect it to be a great season. But don't drag me from being a Longhorn fan. What we're going to do today is I put a couple articles up on my Patreon. I'll add to the description of this those links for those articles, but I'm going to go through it because I think it makes more sense to actually talk about what I've written, especially for this post-realignment CFP plan. So a couple articles, like there's a lot of people talking about what the CFP, the college football playoff, should be, and I'm going to describe what I think it should be and why. All right, so let's go through it. So first off, this is going to be a post-realignment college football playoff structure. Now, guys, that means I am projecting a realignment. This is what the realignment structure I expect it to be. As you can see in the article, I've got Notre Dame and Miami going to the Big Ten. I've got Clemson, North Carolina, Virginia, and Florida State going to the SEC. And I've got Louisville, Virginia Tech, Georgia Tech, and North Carolina State going to the Big 12. Let me say, why did I seed those? These tables are seeded by what I project the standings would have been in those conferences if they were structured like they will be with the way the teams performed in 2024. And there's I don't want to get into too deep into that, but that's how I seeded it. This is the way that I think those conferences would have finished under the format that they will have in probably 3 years, maybe 2 years, probably 3 years. So this is a FBS structure post realignment. You notice that there's essentially an A3 conferences and a G7 conferences, right? So ACC, I'm assuming that those teams that I just talked about leave the ACC, and the rest of the ACC continues on. Whether that's true or not doesn't really matter for where we're going to go with this, but I want everybody to kind of see what the structure would work, how it would work, what it would look like. So the way this table is basically the seeding within those conferences, essentially the conference standings at the end of the regular season before the postseason. And you can see the Pac-12 is built as the Pac-12 will be starting next season. Mountain West, same thing. All right, so the structure of the CFP will be very similar to what the structure is now, or what it'll be this year, or what it was last year. It's 4 rounds. The round 1 or a quarterfinal round that'll have, in this case, 2 byes, and then semifinals and finals. All right, so let's look at what were the 2024 standings before conference championship weekend, and we're going to dig into a few of these things to see. Now, yellow, just for you to get my color coding, yellow is going to signify a Big Ten team, orange an SEC team, purple will be a G7 team, green a Big 12 team, and pink in this chart will be at-large teams that would not have made it. All right, so there's the standings prior to conference championship weekend, and how they would have been seated in their respective conferences before the conference championship games. All right, So now let's talk about the G7. All right, so each G7 team, my proposal moves their calendar back 2 weeks. So they probably start the season 2 weeks early. They may start it 1 week early and give up one game. And you say, well, Larry, they'll never do that. Well, hold on. Let's at least get through this slide before you think that. So the seven conferences, the seven G7 conferences, all host a conference championship game on the what would be the week before rivalry week, the week before Thanksgiving, and then those teams on rivalry weekend host semifinals, which serve as play-in games for the playoff for the CFP. So the top four ranked teams, or whatever structure, however the G7 wants to structure it, the top four teams in the G7, the winners of conference championship games, playing two semifinal games. Then they will have a G7 championship, and I'll show you that on what the week after that. All right, so there you go. So there you go. On so that the semifinals occur on rivalry weekend for everybody else, and then the conference championship, the G7 championship, the G7 holds a G7 level championship, crowns a G7 champion. So under the 2024 scenario, under the new structure, we'll say SMU wins the ACC conference championship game. They would have played, for lack of better projection, Syracuse. Then Boise State would have played Washington State in the Pac-12. The winner, Boise State would have won that. Then Army beats Tulane, and then I have UNLV beating San Jose State. So those are the four G7 champions. They play off in the semifinals. Ends up with SMU playing Boise State in Las Vegas. That's where I decided to put the G7 championship on conference championship weekend. All right, so those four teams in the semifinals playoff, and the SMU and Boise State, they get into the CFP. Now what they're playing for in the G7 championship, not only is a G7 championship banner, whatever trophy, whatever they want to do, but they will be playing for a better seed in the CFP, just like the other the autonomous conferences will be doing. All right, let's talk about the A3. So on conference championship weekend, the big three, the three big remaining autonomous conferences, the SEC, Big Ten, and Big 12, all still have a conference championship game. What they also have is what will serve as playing games: a 3 versus 6 seed, a 4 versus 5 seed for the SEC and Big Ten. For the Big 12, that'll actually be the 3 seed hosting the second highest at-large team, and the 4 seed hosting the highest at-large team. So if you go back to the standings or back to the rankings, you saw the two pink teams, Clemson and Missouri. Happened that both of these teams are now in the SEC. It won't always work out that way, but that's just following the projections. Okay, that's where I think they would have been. They would have been the two at-large teams. So BYU hosts Missouri, and Louisville hosts Clemson. And again, those are home games. The 3 versus 6 is an inter-conference game. It's actually 3 seed SEC versus 6 seed Big Ten. 3 seed Big Ten hosting 6 seed SEC. All right, so there's an inter-conference challenge. That thought process extends to the Big 12, but they're taking on the at-large team, the top at-large teams, and then because the SEC, the one downside of this for the SEC and the Big Ten is they could literally have, if they did cross seeding again, they could end up with only 2 teams in the CFP. That's not going to be allowed. All right, so they're they're going to have their 4-5 game be a game that's intra-conference. So they're going to have, in this case, let's say the SEC, the 4 seed Ole Miss hosts Alabama, and that's an intra-conference game. All right, so the winners of the playing games, so for an example, I'm projecting Tennessee and Notre Dame. Notre Dame's now in the Big Ten, and BYU. They're in the CFP. Then Ole Miss and Ohio State, the 5 seed, actually beats Indiana. Indiana hosts that game, but Ohio State beats them, and then Clemson beats Louisville. So that's how I had those. That's why projected winner, projected loser in that line. All right, so there you go. Now let's go down. All right, so there's a bunch of words to describe all that. So what does all that mean from a participation standpoint? The SEC will have 6 teams that have access to the CFP, and the 2 top teams, the 3 seed, the 4 seed, the 5 seed, and the 6 seed, they have access. They're not the only 1 and 2 are guaranteed into the CFP. Then the Big Ten will have 4 teams that have access, and they'll have a guarantee of having 2. Well, okay, so SEC and Big Ten will have a guarantee of 3 because they're playing interconference. They could have as many as 5. The Big 12 will have 4 teams have access. They'll have a guarantee of 2. They could lose both those games against the at-large teams, but they could have 4. So the interesting thing about this structure is you could have a year where the SEC has 3, or the Big Ten has 3 because they lost both their interconference challenge games, playing games, and the Big 12 beats both of their at-large teams. They have 4. So, okay, SEC 5, Big 10 3, Big 12 4, or SEC 3, Big 12 5, Big 10 5, Big 12 4. All right, that could happen. What will likely happen is on the average line. Okay, the SEC will have 4, the Big 10 will have 4, the Big 12 will have 3 because they'll win one of their at-large games and lose the other one, and then the at-large will have 1, and then the G7, both those teams that played in that G7 championship game are in. All right, so that's who's in. Those are the 14 teams that make it, and I think that structure gives everybody the best access. In fact, the Big 12 can say, look, we can be really good. We can beat our at-large teams, and we can have 4 teams in a tournament, and one of those 2 power conferences could only have 3. We can make out much better, and they don't have to say they're the lesser conference in that scenario. All right, they get a chance to win it on the field. All right, so now let's look at what is the general structure of the 14-team playoff. Okay, guys, it's very similar to the current 12-team structure, except 2 of the byes are gone. All right, so the winner of the SEC and the winner of the Big 12 conference championship game, those 2 teams, I mean the Big 10 and the SEC, those 2 winners of that conference championship game, they get the bye just like they do in the 12-team structure. All right, so everybody else, all the other 12 teams, are playing in a first round game. Now, this table describes the winner, right? The games, right? So the 4 versus 5 game, that intra game, they will play the winner of the Big 12 conference championship game, who gets the 4 seed. All right. Now, think of this as an NCAA basketball bracket, where there's a 1 through 16 seed. This bracket has 2 1 through 7 seeds, right? So we do that because we're gonna seed them in a way that you're gonna have a Big 10 or an SEC team in every game. Why? Because that's what the media will really want to build the value for this. They're gonna want one of those power conference teams, and then they're gonna take on a challenger from one of the other slots. All right, so there's the 4 versus 5 team game winner in the Big 10 takes on the Big 12 conference championship. Now this could flip. You could flip it the next year. okay, and swap the Big Ten and the SEC around in this. Then you've got the SEC 3 versus 6 playing game winner. They'll take on the G7 championship game loser. All right, and then you'll have the Big Ten championship game loser. Right, that they will play either one of the two Big 12 playing game winners. And I say that because we're not sure who's going to be the at large, so they'll structure the at large, seed the at large, so that if it's a Big 10 team, they'll probably put it on the bottom side of the bracket. If it's an SEC team, they'll put in the at large team. They would play that game. Now, there two SEC teams win. They'll just have to decide which way they want it. All right, the higher ranked team probably gets the lower ranked of the conference championship game losers. All right, so championship game winners, championship game losers, and you see how the structure. All right, that's a lot of words. I might have lost you in all the symbolism there. All right, don't worry about it because we'll just show you the example. All right, so we're going to go back. All right, what are the rankings after the championship games? Right. So you see the teams in black there. Those are the teams that have made the college football playoff by winning. One of the things I want to emphasize, I didn't write this. I probably should go back and write it. This is a win and you're in model for 12 of the 14 teams. They have to win to get in. The two teams that lose the SEC championship game and the Big 10 championship game, they can get in, but everybody else had to win their way in. Well, okay, the G7 champion loser still gets in, but they will have won 2 games. They will have won their conference championship and they will have won their semifinal game to get in. All right, so generally it's a win to get in model. All right, so the 4 teams that won their conference championship game, there's who they would have been under this structure in 2024. Here's the 4 championship game losers, and here's the inter-conference challenge winners, and there's the intra-conference challenge playing game winners. All right, those 14 teams are the teams that are in the postseason or in the CFP. Now, on the right side of that table, I showed you the way they would have been ranked by adjusting the rankings after the conference championship game weekend. All right, so what does that look like? What are a lot of words to get to this, basically. This is what the 14 team structure looks like. Now, Larry, this isn't that different. It's not that different except that every team is slotted in a spot. And it's done that way so that you can get matchups where you're not having conference teams play each other, and that you really don't have 2 conference teams play each other until the semifinals. So if you look at the way it would have worked out based on the games that happened and the teams that won, this is what the structure would look like. So you'd have Georgia at the top of the bracket and a number 1 seed in half the bracket. You have Oregon, the number 1 seed in half the bracket, and you see how it plays out. Okay. I think this would be a fantastic playoff. And it's like, well, that's not that different in the 12-team straight seeding model. Correct. It's not that different, except we're slotting the teams in. We're taking away one of the buys just because under the new college football structure, post-realignment, I think that's going to be the reality. And the Big Ten and the SEC are going to want their champions to be playing for something on championship weekend. And so you see the structure how it plays out. Okay, so we say, well, why not a straight C model? Okay, they can do the straight C model. What I will say onto my slotting model is that I would give the conference commissioners, or if they want to have a committee do it, adjust the structure from the slots, then they could do that. But this is what the straight C model would look like. You can see that if Ole Miss wins this game versus SMU, they play Georgia. Okay, that's not necessarily a problem. We had teams play inter-conference teams before in the postseason. but that won't be as exciting as the structure I had up here, where Ohio State wins that game, they're playing Georgia. Tennessee wins that game, they're playing Penn State. Ole Miss wins their game, they're playing Oregon. Notre Dame wins their game, they're playing Texas. Well, I just listed out a whole bunch of eight Power 2 teams. Guys, I'm sorry, but you know, the realities of where we're headed to is a structure of college football. That's what who's going to be most favored in those games, right? I'm not saying that the other teams can't win. The beauty of this model is they're given a chance to win, and so it is what it is basically. All right. So the problem with this seeding model is that, or the straight seed model, is that you do have those conference rematches potentially as early as the well. There's models the way it could play out. It could be two teams in the first round are playing each other that they could have played. You could have Michigan and Ohio State playing the first round of the playoff when they finished the last week of the regular season playing each other. I don't think that's going to be something that the playoff committee is really going to want. The other thing is, and I stressed it more in the article and I didn't stress it here. Notice where all the red at signs. So that's designating the home team. Right. Let me go back for a minute. Conference championship games. I talked about it. The conferences are hosting those games. So that means they're getting 6 games. Each conference is getting 2 home games from their playing games. The conference championship game stays at a neutral site. The playing games are hosted by one of the teams. The semifinals in the G7, those are hosted because one of the things we're doing here, guys, is we're saying like these games are happening 1 week after each other. So we're allowing the home team to have you're allowing a team to have a home field advantage. What'll be good, what happens now in the CFP, you notice that it's all the play-in teams in the power conference or in the A3 conferences that are getting home games. It'll be those conference championship teams that are getting the home games in the CFP. So let me show you what I mean. All right, so you got your conference championship, and it's Georgia, it's Arizona State, Boise State, it's Penn State, it's SMU, it's Iowa State, it's Texas, and it's Oregon, all hosting home games in the first 2 rounds of the CFP. Okay, that's where I think we're headed. That's where I think what we'll have, and that way you add the 8 home games here, the 4 home games on of the playing games, and the 2 G7 semifinal home games. That's 16 home games. Some people have said that that's a critical factor for these conferences. They want those home games because they see it as an economic boom for their local communities. So there you go. That's that. Now, what happened? So why did I bring that up now when I'm talking about the straight seam model? If you go to straight seam model, you're not going to have that good connection because the straight seam model, they're probably going to put the home team at the best seed, right? Well, the problem with that is maybe it's not a problem depending how you look at it, right? But the realities of it is in a straight seed model, the Big Ten would have had 4 home games last year. The SEC would have had 3. The G7 champion would have had 1, SMU, and the Big 12 would have had none. And I just don't think that's going to be palatable to all the stakeholders. They're not going to no, they're going to want to be able to force the allocation of those home games. And that's what my model does. Those home games are going to be valuable. Every conference will get, at the end of the day, have the power conference, the autonomous conferences will all have 3 home games. Through the postseason. All right, guys. So that's my model. That's where I think we're headed. There'll be lots of rumors and lots of stuff about 24, 2018 models. All right. Well, let's talk about that for a minute. Let me back up. So I talked about, especially in the pre-realignment structure, that we'll really address this much more there. But I think people are conflating playoff games with access to the playoff. Now, some of these models that are 24 and 32, they're actually saying they're basically eliminating the conference championship games. Guys, I don't think that's going to happen because for the Big Ten and for the SEC, those conference championship games make them a ton of money, a lot of money, and they're not just going to give them up. So what I've done is I've incorporated those conference championship games into a model with playing games that make the conferences even more money, let them have control of those games, see who's playing in those games, and provide the access. All right, so depending on how you frame it, access versus actually playing in the CFP, we're talking about a model here that's either 22 teams or 32 teams if you include the other games that were played in the G7, or you're talking about 14 teams that are actually playing in the CFP. So I'm just telling you, like, whether you start with 24 teams or you start with playing games like this, you're going to end up involving the same teams to get into the playoffs. And who's in the playoffs and how many teams are in the playoffs really depends on where you draw the line. Are the playing games in the playoffs or the playing games to the playoffs? It doesn't matter because those same teams would be playing in the 24 team model or the 32 team model as they're playing in the playing games here. And I just think the conferences are going to want control of that versus like saying a committee is going to see all the games in the playoff. All right, guys. There you go. It's 27 minutes, guys. Once again, please like the video, subscribe to the channel. I'm going to do more college football content this year. So let me know what you think. Thanks. Bye bye.